Now let's move towards the real stuff, because math is all about practice. Until you solve questions, you will not really understand the concept. So let's move on to our iPad and solve a few examples together. Now let's look at the other approach for solving the same equations. Mod one side and constant on the other. Basically equations of this form. One approach we just discussed is the number line approach, but you can actually solve the same question without having to draw a number line, and that is through these two steps. There are two steps which you have to follow in order to solve the same equation if you choose not to use a number line. And there are some cases where this approach is actually easier to apply as compared to the number line. Number line approach is just there to understand what the model is all about. That's like the basic idea behind the equation. But to solve, there are multiple ways. One is the number line method, but this is the second approach which says to solve this equation, what you can do is you can remove the mod. But when you remove the mod, you have to put a plus minus instead. Right? So for instance, if I have this equation, what I would do is I would remove the mod and put a plus minus instead. Right hand side is as it is. And this gives me two equations. One equation would be x minus c equals d, and the other equation would be minus x minus c equals d. And using these two equations, I can find the two values of x. But please make sure before you start solving for x, check for the number of solutions, and that depends on the value of d. If this d is negative, don't even begin solving because there should be no solution. If this d is positive, then you can use this method or the previous method to find the two solutions. And if d is 0, then there's only one solution, for which you can simply equate this x minus c to 0. Because when d is 0, the solution is the center itself. Let's try and use the second approach, this other approach we just discussed, to solve a few equations. So for instance, the equation we have is x plus 3 mod equals 5. Now this is a simple equation. You can use number line, you can use the approach we just discussed. So if you want to use the current approach, what we have to do is remove the mod, put a plus minus on the entire side. From here I can form two equations. One would be x plus 3 equals 5, and the other one would be minus times x plus 3 equals 5. From here we get x equals 2. From here we can say x plus 3 is minus 5, and therefore x is minus 8. The two solutions therefore are minus 8 and 2. This is how we solve the equation using the second method. In this question, both the approaches are equally easy to apply, but there are some cases where the second approach is much easier to apply. So let's look at one example of such a case. For instance, the equation you have is 3x plus 1 equals 2. Now, if you draw a number line, you will have to identify the center, which means you will have to convert this into x minus c mod equals d form. So if you choose to use a number line, you can, but you'll have to first modify the equation. Let me tell you how you can do that. So what you can do is you can take 3 common, and then you're left with x plus 1 upon 3 inside the mod. Here you have to use the property which says that if you have mod of AB, it becomes the same thing as mod of A times mod of B. Basically, you can split the mod. Mod of the product is always equal to the product of mods. So this is just mod 3 times mod x plus 1 upon 3, which is equal to 2, and mod of 3 is 3 itself. So basically the equation we have to solve is this. This is the starting form when you're using a number line. That is why I'm not going to recommend using a number line in this case. You can use a number line easily as long as this is just x or 1x. But if there's a coefficient besides 1, then you should rather go for the second approach, which we will use right now after completing this. So if you remember the number line approach, it says start at the center, add d, you get the first solution, subtract d, get the second solution. Center is minus 1 by 3. So minus 1 by 3 plus 2 upon 3 is the first solution, which is 1 by 3. Second solution is minus 1 by 3 minus 2 by 3, which is minus 3 upon 3 minus 1. So therefore the two solutions to this equation are minus 1 and plus 1 by 3. This is the answer. But in this approach, you have to be careful with a few things, like the sign when you find the center, taking the 3 common. You can actually avoid all of this by using the second approach instead. Let's see how to do that. For the second approach, I'll start all over again. Nothing to modify, standard rule, remove the mod, put a plus minus. So 3x plus 1 with a plus minus equals 2 will help me form two equations. First equation, 3x plus 1 equals 2. Second equation, minus times 3x plus 1 equals 2. Right hand side is as it is. From here, you get 2 minus 1 upon 3, which is 1 by 3. From here, you can maybe take the minus sign to the right first. Then you get 3x equals minus 3, and therefore x is once again minus 1. So we have the same solutions as before using the second approach. As you can see, this was much quicker and much safer. So once again, if you have an equation with mod one side and constant on the other side, you have two approaches, number line and the second approach, which is removing the mod, putting a plus minus instead. If the coefficient of x is 1, then you can use any of the two. But if the coefficient of x is not 1, then the second approach is the easier one, or you can say the safer one. Hope you understood everything in this lesson and all the lessons we have covered before this. But in case you still have any queries, you can always approach us in the discussion box below.